Alright, I had a lot of fun with Pal World. Managed to organize my pals, run the base, sleeky smooth. I think I'm done for now. And, oh, what's this? After weeks of silence, Activision finally made a blog about skill-based matchmaking. Let's take a quick gander here. And it's filled with nothing but lies and bullshit. Okay, I'm gonna need a little bit of help with this one. How about we bring in a text-to-speech Matt to help us with this one? Also, to make things a little bit more interesting, how about we add a lying and a contradiction counter? Because from what I've read, we're gonna need it. Now, let's tear this to shreds, shall we?
With the launch of Modern Warfare 3, Season 1 late last year, we committed to a conversation with our community about matchmaking.
That was not a conversation. That was an announcement that you're going to talk about skill-based matchmaking at a later date. And then you made people wait weeks without saying anything.
Today's intel is intended to kick off that dialogue and is a new beginning for what we hope will be an ongoing conversation about matchmaking.
I highly doubt that. You haven't talked about skill-based matchmaking for 5 years straight. You ignored everyone's complaining and begging for you to either change it or do something about it. You ignored them. You ignored all of the trendings that were on Twitter. You ignored all of the pros, the fans, the community's complaints about it. But yet I have one question. Why wait until now to bring it up? That's something I'll never understand.
Sharing our process and learnings with you to answer questions and concerns we've seen within the community.
Again, why now? If you already knew about the concerns for the matchmaking 5 years ago, you would have done something already. Make the matchmaking way less strict or get rid of it entirely. So that way players can have fun, play the game for longer, they can be addicted, and more importantly, buy more of your stuff. If you managed to do that, you wouldn't even be in this scenario right now.
This blog focuses on how matchmaking works across multiplayer only. We will be continuing the conversation about matchmaking in other modes, such as Call of Duty Warzone and ranked play at a later date. For players that have heard the term but aren't familiar with what we're referring to, matchmaking is a multi-factor process to place players on teams, with and against each other, to compete in online games.
With broken team balancing, might I add. I mean, how many times you run into a scenario, you have a team of idiots while you carry the weight versus a team of professional sweatlords? I mean, how's that fair?
The single biggest priority with respect to multiplayer matchmaking is delivering a fun experience to our players.
Delivering a fun experience to everyone as their top priority. Remember that for later.
While we have many years of testing and learning as part of our matchmaking process, we are continuously working to deliver the best experiences possible. For that reason, we continue to test and look forward to more enhancements to come. We often see the community refer to our matchmaking system as skill-based matchmaking. Call of Duty does consider skill, or more specifically player performance, as a component, as do most in the industry, but skill is not the dominant variable.
If you're referring to Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare all the way up to Black Ops 4, then it's true. Skill was not really a dominant factor back then. But if you're referring to Modern Warfare 2019 all the way up to the Modern Warfare 3 reboot, somehow you thought it was a good idea to change matchmaking entirely and cranked it all the way up to 11, making it incredibly strict as hell, so that way it becomes unbearable, unenjoyable, and because you did that for 5 games in a row,
we consider and prioritize several factors to create lobbies. Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking is composed of many factors. 1. Connection, as the community will attest, ping is king. Connection is the most critical and heavily weighted factor in the matchmaking process.
Not anymore. Ping was truly king years ago. Back in World at War and Black Ops 1, you could either search for connections based on your local area or wide around the world. Black Ops 2, on the other hand, took it a step further, when you could search for normal connections, any connections, and the best connections possible. If Ping was truly king, like you said, you would have supplied options for the player to prioritize connection over skill. But the last time we've ever seen settings like this was in Black Ops 2, a game that was released back in 2012. Also, remember when you said this?
Call of Duty does consider skill, or more specifically player performance, as a component, as do most in the industry, but skill is not the dominant variable.
If you would look up Drifter's YouTube channel, you can find specific videos how he explains how the matchmaking itself can affect your connection quality the better you do. So, I guess skill is the dominant variable here. Well, guess what?
2. Time TO match. This factor is the second most critical to the matchmaking process. We all want to spend time playing the game rather than waiting for matches to start.
Again, Activision, you're friggin' lying. And to further prove that, here's a little bit of a clip from Nero Cinema himself, as he shows something very interesting.
But do you guys remember, just a couple of months ago, before Modern Warfare 3 came out, I posted this video right here, which shows me trying to get into a game of Modern Warfare 2, which at the time was the current COD, and in the background there, I jumped on a bunch of older CODs to see exactly how many older CODs I could get into in the time it takes me to find one single game of Modern Warfare 2, which again, at the time, was the current COD, which had the most people on it. And I'm going to spoil this for you guys. I got into 6 different games of Team Deathmatch across 6 different Call of Duty titles in the time it took them to find the perfect skill-based matchmaking lobby for me within Modern Warfare 2. That is absurd. They say time to match is the second most critical aspect of their matchmaking process. Absolutely ridiculous. But
Thank you, Nero Cinema. I hope you don't mind me using a clip from one of your videos. If you want to see his entire thoughts on the whole matchmaking blog in general, I will post a link in the description below. As for Activision, if time to match is so important, then why don't you give the player options to search for matches however he wants? Would he search for matches based on the best connection, or go into a match immediately regardless of connections? Again, the search preferences in Black Ops 2 existed for a reason.
3. The following factors are also critical to the matchmaking process. Playlist diversity, the number of playlists available for players to choose from.
Not to mention the fact that you pretty much have way too much on your plate. I mean, you got so much crap to worry about in multiplayer along with Warzone. Part of me just wishes that Warzone didn't exactly exist, so you could put all of your time and energy into improving the multiplayer to make it the best it could possibly be. Not to mention, if it comes to a team-based game mode, the team balancing is not in the best condition. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a team of idiots while you carry all the weight by yourself.
Recent maps/modes, considering maps you have recently played on as well as your mode preferences, editable in quick play settings.
But in your last few games, you didn't have map voting at all. Modern Warfare 2019 didn't have it. Vanguard didn't have it, and Modern Warfare 2 didn't have it.
Skill/performance, this is used to give our players, a global community with a wide skill range, the opportunity to have an impact in every match.
He's full of shit!
Wait a second. I thought you said that skill wasn't the dominant valuable, but yet here you are presenting it as a factor. Well, guess what? Well, look at that. Out First contradiction. If you want to deliver a fun experience to your players, then public multiplayer should not have this matchmaking. If you want to deliver a skillful and competitive experience to your players, then ranked should have this matchmaking system, and people will get the best of both worlds. If you did that, you wouldn't even be making this blog right now.
Input device, controller or mouse and keyboard. Platform, the device, PC, console, that you are playing on.
Since we're on the topic of console, let me ask, how come PlayStation and PC versions of the game allow you to disable crossplay, but for some reason, Xbox versions don't have that option? Why?
Voice chat, enabled or disabled.
Which no one will probably ever use now ever since the voice moderation tool got introduced. Hell, it could even report you for cussing. So, wait. Your characters in the video game can cuss, but not the player. How the hell does that make any sense?
Every time a player begins matchmaking in multiplayer, for example, the process needs to work through all these factors to find other players, all of which are also being analyzed, to quickly assemble a lobby that is stable and competitive.
Well, so much for your main priority to deliver a fun experience to your players. First you say you want to deliver a fun experience as your main priority to your players, then you went on and discussed these further factors, skill and performance being one of them, to make a stable and competitive lobby. Again, like I stated before, if you're trying to deliver a fun experience to your players, public matches should not have this matchmaking system. If you're trying to deliver a competitive and skillful experience to your players, then ranked matches should have this matchmaking system. What you're trying to do is cram everything into public matches, and it doesn't work.
These factors have resulted in a process that we believe provides the best player experience and creates a stronger community for Call of Duty worldwide. Let's get more technical on a few of these factors. Measuring connection for matchmaking. Whether you're playing for fun with friends or looking to climb the leaderboards, connection is the most important part of the online Call of Duty experience.
How? If you got the game set up with a strict competitive matchmaking system, how is anyone supposed to have fun with this? Just how?
Connection dictates the speed at which the game can transfer information from every player to and from our servers. Call of Duty's matchmaking process evaluates a metric we call delta ping, which is the difference in round-trip time of the data between your best data center, almost always the one closest to you.
But that doesn't answer the one question. Why don't you give players the option to search for matches however they want? Black Ops 2 is the perfect example of doing it right. I would rather have that being brought back than rely on your stupid matchmaking system to find matches for me.
And the data center onto which your lobby has been placed, based on all players in a lobby. To reiterate, we always try to maximize the times we place players in data centers that are closest to them. Call of Duty uses a client-server model to host matches, where the time it takes to share information between the player, client, and the data center, dedicated server, has an impact on the overall feel of a match.
If it's a dedicated server, then shouldn't the whole process look like this?
The Call of Duty netcode, which we've discussed in the past, works to reduce the effect of latency, but cannot completely eliminate it. The matchmaking process seeks to reduce the overall amount of latency by prioritizing stable connections or low ping, with a shortened wait time in mind.
Or you could just bring back the search preference options that was in Black Ops 2 and eliminate the whole latency problem altogether. Again, it existed for a reason.
Measuring time to match for matchmaking. Any form of matchmaking takes time. If the wait time in a lobby is excessively long, players typically recycle the process by canceling out of matchmaking search and restarting it, or even quitting. This does not quicken the matchmaking process and in fact can even be detrimental.
Again, search preferences. It existed for a reason.
For example, in the popular Modern Warfare 3 Rustment playlist, consisting of Rust and Shipment in rotation, players often leave lobbies and/or matches early on, hoping to requie into Shipment instead. This creates a vacant spot on a team during an early stage of the match. As the matchmaking process may prioritize backfilling that spot, this could result in players perceiving that Rust is disproportionately selected over Shipment. TLDR, trying to cherry-pick maps may have an unexpected result. Our goal is to ensure that players spend more time playing matches rather than waiting for them.
It's not just the maps of why players leave. There are other reasons why. 1. Cheaters and hackers. 2. They entered a map where there's too much ping. I mean, do you want to play against a match where it's 150 to 300 ping? No, I don't think so. 3. The match is just about to end. If you're in a match where the enemy team is just about to win, why stick around? And 4, the matchmaking is just too strict where everyone just sweats like $5 million are on the line and you're not having any fun at all, so you just leave. Those are the reasons why players leave in the middle of a match.
Measuring skill for matchmaking. While skill is one of several factors in Call of Duty multiplayer matchmaking, we know the community wants more information about how it fits into the process. Skill is determined based on a player's overall performance, kills, deaths, wins, losses, and more, including mode selection, and recent matches as an overall metric across all multiplayer experiences. This is a fluid measurement that's consistently updating and reacting to your gameplay. Skill is not only a factor in matchmaking players against appropriate enemies, but also when finding teammates.
I can tell you this from experience, but that is not the case at all. I played through several matches myself where I'm usually up against a team of pros while I got a team of idiots on my side, and I have to carry the entire weight of the team by myself. And if that happens in a majority of your team games, then something is wrong with your team balancing and it should be fixed.
Call of Duty has historically considered player performance among other factors as part of our matchmaking process. Our work in this area dates back as early as Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, 2007. Skill is implemented across the video game industry, and we recognize that continuous refinement is required to deliver the best possible experience for our players.
Then, like I stated before, you're trying to cram everything into public matches and it just doesn't work. If you wanted to deliver a fun experience to players, then public multiplayer shouldn't have this matchmaking system to begin with. If you want to deliver a skillful and competitive experience, then ranked should have this matchmaking system.
We use player performance to ensure that the disparity between the most skilled player in the lobby and the least skilled player in the lobby isn't so vast that players feel their match is a waste of time.
And it became a waste of time. The matchmaking is so strict that even after showing like 1 or 2 wins, you're up against players that play like $5 million are on the line on a Call of Duty League tournament, sliding all over the place, jumping around every corner they see. It's not fun, and no wonder people leave in the middle of a match.
Our data on player outcomes clearly indicates that the inclusion of skill in Call of Duty's multiplayer matchmaking process, as it currently stands, increases the variety of outcomes experienced by players of all skill levels. In other words, all players, regardless of skill level, are more likely to experience wins and losses more proportionately.
No, it doesn't! If you got yourself a matchmaking system that uses skill as a factor, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna come across a player that keeps on using the same meta loadout, or the same quick scoping loadout, or the same kind of players that bunny hop and slide all over the place. And you keep encountering the same kind of player over and over and over again. There's no variety at all. If there really was variety, they would have used the different kinds of guns with different kinds of attachments. They would have started experimenting with different kinds of pistols, different kinds of shotguns, all that other junk. That's what made the old Call of Duty games so great. Now, you don't get that anymore.
Our data shows that when lower skill players are consistently on the losing end, they are likely to quit matches in progress or stop playing altogether. This has an effect on the player pool. A smaller player pool means wait times for matches increase and connections may not be as strong as they should be. This can compound over time to create a spiral effect. Eventually, when only high-skilled players remain because lower-skilled players have quit out of frustration, the result is an ecosystem that is worse overall for everyone.
Then why don't you do something about it? Like make the matchmaking, way less strict as it should be. Or get rid of it from public multiplayer entirely and only put it in ranked. Again, like I asked at the beginning, why wait until now? Why couldn't you have done something about it years ago?
Game data indicates that having some limitations on the disparity of skill across the players in a match makes for a healthier ecosystem. We also understand that many high-skill players want more variety of experience, but often feel like they only get the sweatiest of lobbies. We have heard this feedback clearly and will continue to test and actively explore ways to mitigate this concern.
I'm sorry, but at this point, actions speak louder than words. If this really was a concern, then do something about it. Otherwise, people won't believe you.
Does Call of Duty consider player engagement, time played, as a factor in matchmaking? We do not consider how often, or how much, you play when determining matchmaking. Does the Call of Duty matchmaking process impact any in-game elements such as hit registration, player visibility, aim assist, damage, etc.? No. Our matchmaking process does not impact gameplay elements.
Actually, it does when high ping is involved. When you have high ping, you're usually a few seconds behind, or shots just don't register. Again, this existed for a reason.
Does spending money on Call of Duty content, such as bundles, Battle Pass, or Black Cell, change how players are matched? Money spent does not in any way, shape, or form factor into matchmaking.
Then why are you so desperate trying to shove Black Cell and bundles down people's throats? I remember back in Black Ops 2, you can wrap your gun in bacon for a minimum of $3.30. But you look at today's microtransaction bundles now, and they come close to $30. And let's not forget DMZ. How you had bundles specifically designed around it that literally give you an advantage when you bought them. Pretty much making it pay to win.
Does Call of Duty use bots in multiplayer matchmaking? Call of Duty multiplayer does not use bots as part of the general matchmaking process.
Except for the game mode Invasion. Or are you just gonna pretend that mode doesn't exist anymore?
Have you ever tested removing skill as a consideration from matchmaking? We have run tests over the years to determine if removing skill as a consideration from matchmaking makes sense. We will continue to launch these tests periodically. To date, the data remains consistent with what we detailed above. Players tend to quit matches or stop playing if they're getting blown out, resulting in a negative overall experience for all players in the lobby and the general player population.
If you know players are getting blown out due to how strict the matchmaking was in general, I have to ask, why didn't you do anything about it? Hell, you haven't done anything about it in 5 years.
We purposefully do not disclose when these tests occur because it may impact feedback or the data we see during these tests. Have you considered removing skill from matchmaking in specific general multiplayer game modes? We have considered this in the past and we will continue to examine if this idea makes sense as part of an experimental playlist or in specific modes. We have nothing to announce on that front today.
Well, maybe it's about time you should consider it. After all of the massive backlash and hate it keeps on getting on Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, maybe it's about time to consider it. Again, like I said before, actions speak louder than words. Unless you actually do something about the matchmaking, then I don't believe you. And now for my final words to Activision regarding all of this. Jesus Christ. You know, this wouldn't have happened if you actually would have done something about the matchmaking years ago when people started complaining about it. Words don't mean anything until you back it up with actions. Phew. Now that I'm done with all of that, I think it's about time I should go back and operate my base on Power World. Until then, guys, catch yous later. Have a good day.